afternoon and welcome to another session of Powered by the Holy Spirit. I'm Madeline Jones and this is Father John Worgul, and we are here just to have PhD's discussion and just a layman's discussion about being powered by the Holy Spirit. So last time we had suggested that you go out into creation just to see the beauty of what God has done for you. And today we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about creation in the Old Testament and the prophets.
Well, this is all about the Holy Spirit, and we find the Holy Spirit right in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created heavens and the earth, and then we see that the Spirit of God, which is the Ruach Elohim. We're working on that pronunciation,
yes.
Right? It could be translated as a god-awful storm or wind, but the word hovering has sort of bird connotations in the Old Testament. So the Spirit of God hovering, brooding over creation from the get-go gives us the idea that the Holy Spirit is not just a New Testament phenomenon, but we see it right at creation.
And it's fascinating to me, just as a person who does I love to go camping, I love to be out in nature, to experience God in nature. And me as a human being realizing that I was given the gift of nature, right, and that I needed to be part of it and to shepherd that nature, and that the Holy Spirit planned all of this. So,
well, you're going right into nature, and that's great, because if you look in Psalm 104, which is a great nature psalm, you'll see the language there of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit breathes out and he exhales his breath, so to speak, the breath of God that we saw in creation, and creatures are alive. But when he inhales, creatures die. So this whole Holy Spirit in nature is so fundamental to the Hebrew way of thinking. Yeah.
So I hope that you did get a chance to go out into creation, because I think it is fundamental for us to understand who God is, to understand why the Holy Spirit created all of this, and the purpose for it. Even now, as New Testament people, creation is still really important for us to experience that and to experience that level of God, because we do find anybody can find God in creation, I think that's the whole kind of story of the Old Testament. But there's a bigger story in the Old Testament in terms of the prophets. So we do have the Spirit that comes and breathes life into everything. But we also have a more integral infusion of God through people.
Yeah, again, wherever there's life, there's the Holy Spirit. Okay, and that's not only physical life, but also spiritual life. So the spiritual life of the people of the Old Testament, if they were walking with God, it's because they were enabled by the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, again, is not just a New Testament phenomenon, but what you're taking us is that the Holy Spirit came upon certain people in the Old Testament for a particular purpose, and that purpose is to live above and beyond their natural abilities and supernaturally. An example of that would be Moses.
Okay.
And Moses in chapter 11 of Numbers, he was getting jaded because he's had too much work to do. Okay, so God said, get 70 elders. I'm going to put some of your spirit upon them so that they will have your wisdom and ability to govern the people. And it's interesting, two people, Eldad and Nadab. I don't know if you can remember those, but Numbers 11, you should read that because they just weren't in the right place at the right time. Sounds like me a whole lot.
Sounds like me too. Always late.
They're supposed to be outside the camp with the 70, but they're in the inside the camp with people, and they're prophesying, And Joshua said, "No way, Moses, shut them up." And Moses said, "Oh, if only all of God's people had this special gift." You see, and this is the story behind the famous Joel passage, where Joel envisioned someday where everyone is going to have this special, empowering gift of the Holy Spirit in their lives.
But not quite yet, I guess. So for me, the Old Testament, I always sort of wondered, well, why do we have an Old Testament? And I always thought, well, it's God preparing his people through prophets, because he was coming, but we're slow on the uptake. So I don't know, is that a good interpretation? Is that
I think so. It's setting the stage. I mean,
Setting the
if
stage.
Jesus came all of a sudden and Pentecost happened all of a sudden, no one would have a ghost of an idea what's going on, right? And so God choosing Israel, the special people, and working in the ways he did with them, sets the stage. I mean, you've got all sorts of wonderful things happening among the prophets. You got Elijah, okay, and the Holy Spirit falls upon him, and he can do all sorts of special things. He can outrun chariots, and he can be in two places at one time. All these cool things that you wish you could do.
Right. Well, and when I think of the Old Testament too, I think of Abraham, and I think of Solomon, and I think of David, and sort of people who were not anything special, who through the empowering of the Holy Spirit did remarkable things.
Right. And even King Saul, the Spirit came on him, so to do supernatural things in battle and so on and so forth. That was taken from him and given, to David. So the king, is able to act supernaturally. Okay, the prophets also, the Spirit of God came on them, and they prophesied. I mean, they couldn't do this in and of themselves. You see.
And was it Jeremiah who said, "You duped me, O Lord, and I let myself be duped"? Was that Jeremiah?
Oh, yeah.
I thought, because sometimes I feel that way, even as a New Testament person, like, man, I'm out here and the Lord duped me and I let myself be duped, but I can't help but proclaim his name.
Yeah. You see, the Spirit of God came upon him and burned in his bones, right? And it has to come out. And when it comes out, often it doesn't make things very comfortable. And it didn't make. And so sometimes the prophet said, "Hey, I appreciate this power and be able to prophesy and so on and so forth, but it's certainly not creating a life that I had anticipated."
Right. And so for me, the Old Testament is very real. There's a lot of imagery. There's a lot of stories of a lot of different people waiting. And I think of Anne and Joachim, and they're telling their daughter these stories of their people, the people of Israel, and she's absorbing this information. And I think next time we are going to talk about the incarnation and Mary's ability to say yes. And I think she had to know the stories of the Old Testament.
Oh, sure.
In order to say yes. And so we are going to leave you for today. If you have a chance, maybe go back and read Numbers 11.
Number 11, Joel chapter 2.
And just really take advantage of this time that we have been given to figure out what the Old Testament is and who the prophets are, and maybe you have your favorite. Jeremiah's my favorite. We're both dupes.
Yeah,
Who's your favorite prophet?
Just remember that the Old Testament sets the stage for the new. Without the Old Testament, we don't have a new. Jesus is hidden in the Old and revealed in the New. And if we just had a new, there would have been no preparation for Jesus. So the Holy Spirit is behind all of this.
Setting the stage.
Setting the stage.
So until then, we are going to bid you adieu. We hope that you have a very happy Tuesday afternoon, and we will see you again on Friday.
God bless.
God bless.